In 1961, a new adventure series hit the syndicated television market. That series was called Ripcord. It ran for a total of 76 episodes from 1961 to 1963. And it was based on the exploits of a skydiving operation that had its namesake. The series was created by Harry Redmond Jr. and James Carl Hall, and it starred Larry Pannell, Ken Curtis, Paul Kami, and Shug Fisher. You see, during this time, skydiving, the sport of skydiving, was becoming all the thrill in the early 1960s, and that's the premise of the adventures that surrounded this crew. The two men in their private Cessna airplane were placed in some strange and unusual situations where they had to use their special skills and abilities to help people in need, and a variety of other tasks. This led them on an exciting weekly adventure, from chasing dangerous criminals to performing difficult and daring and often absurd rescues. The series starred Larry Pannell as the handsome, headstrong, very youthful, and brave skydiver Ted McKeever. His level-headed, older mentor and best buddy was James Buckley, played by Ken Curtis. Yeah, that's the same Ken Curtis from Gunsmoke. The airplane pilot was Chuck Lambert, and that was played by Paul Kami. But he was replaced midway through the first season by a guy named Charlie Kern, and that was played by fellow Sons of the Pioneer bandmate Shug Fisher. Ken Curtis and he got their start playing with Roy Rogers and the Sons of the Pioneers. They worked together in many Western shows, and seems like they were constantly cast together in a variety of things. Through all those exciting productions, they became the best of friends. I mean, their friendship was tight. It wasn't just a working friendship. This was a closeness that was shared by few people. Now, the stuntmen were super important in this show. They were actually the skydivers that were doing the majority of the work, and all this stuff was filmed live action. They used Bob Fleming as the airline pilot, and Joe Mangione was also used as a pilot during the series. Both of them were from Brooklyn, New York, and they were involved in the majority of the scenes that were shot. The cameraman was Tom Ryan. Now, he was super important in the fact that he had previous experience filming parachute jumps for testing, design, and development. He was a pioneer in capturing close-up shots of free-falling skydivers. Now, you got to think back on this. This was 1962, when cameras were huge. This was not an easy stunt to do. In 1962, the filming of the series involved the transfer of a stuntman between two planes. And all this happened while it was being filmed by a third. They were having a terrible time trying to get this stunt done because of the air turbulence. But the two planes bumped together and ended up going down. Yeah, they both crashed. Luckily, the pilots of both planes and the stuntman were able to parachute to safety. Now, they actually saved this dramatic footage and used it in 2 of the Ripcord Season 2 episodes. Now, the TV show was a hit, not just in the United States, but it was also a hit in the UK in 1964, and it aired in Brazil under the same title of Ripcord, and was a hit down there during that time. There was a comic strip that was adapted for the TV show, and it was popular in its own right. But probably one of the most important aspects of this show was the toy that was generated because of it. If you were a kid growing up in the 60s, you probably had one of these toys. I know I had quite a few of them. They sold, I think, for $1.99, and it consisted of a large plastic parachute with a plastic skydiver figure attached to it. You would take this guy, roll the parachute up, and throw him into the air, and he would float to the ground just like he was on a real parachute. This toy was an excellent seller. I know that in my neighborhood growing up, we all had this toy, and we would see how far we could throw it and see if we could land on certain objects. It was a blast. We loved this toy. It would never float down as slowly as you wanted it to, but it was still fun to play with. At the end of every episode, Larry Pannell, who played Ted McKeever, along with Ken Curtis, who played James Buckley, would deliver a brief comment addressing to viewers the importance of sport parachuting safety. Although the heroes of this show found themselves in precarious situations each week, they always emphasized the paramount importance of safety. The show really tried to pull viewers to the edge of their seat and explain the series title, with many of the episodes beginning with this narration. This is the most dangerous packed show on television. Every jump, every aerial maneuver is real, photographed just as it happened, without trick or illusion. All that stands between a jumper and death is his ripcord. Now let's talk about some of the actors that played on the show. Larry Pannell, he was from Pennsylvania, a town called Uniontown, Pennsylvania, and he was an unbelievable athlete. He actually played professional baseball at one time. I think he played for the Boston Braves, but he was definitely a talented guy in many more ways than acting alone. And he went on later on, after the show Ripcord, to be known as Dash Riprock in the Beverly Hillbillies. Now that's what I distinctly remember him in. Then you've got Ken Curtis, who everybody knows from Gunsmoke. And I'll tell you what, this guy was a multifaceted actor. He was in so many things, and his voice was just amazing. He got his start in music, and he was a joy to listen to. And then you got his buddy, Shug Fisher, who was basically about the same type character as Ken Curtis was. He got his start as a musical person and then transitioned into westerns and so many other shows. The Sons of the Pioneers was a start for so many actors with more than just their vocal careers. Now here we go back to the Beverly Hillbillies again. I remember Shug Fisher from playing Shorty Kellums on the Beverly Hillbillies. That's where he really stands out to me in my mind. But Shug Fisher and Ken Curtis were the best of friends. And when Shug retired to Studio City, California, he became very ill. He became ill with some kind of lasting illness, and he wasn't well for a few years. He eventually died on March 16th, 1984. And with him when he passed away was his great friend, Ken Curtis. What a true testament to their friendship. Ken Curtis stayed with him all the way through his death. Now there's one other actor that was only in the show for one series, but there's some strange stuff about her appearance, or actually about her life, that I would like to go into. Her name is Allison Hayes, and she was a popular actress in both film and television. She plays what's called a paranurse in the show. Now she's a gorgeous nurse too, so she's very fun to look at, and she was well noticed even though she was only in one episode. She went on to play in other things like Bat Masterson. She played in Perry Mason. She played in a lot of stuff that was on TV. But during the time that she was acting, she started becoming ill. And she felt so bad that sometimes she felt like she just wanted to take her own life. She was that miserable. She went to many doctors and couldn't find out what was the matter with her. So she decided to do a little reading and research on her own. She stumbled upon some books about poisoning that people suffered from who worked in factories. and she found out that she had the same symptoms as they did. They were suffering the same type painful symptoms that she had. This made her question the ingredients that were in her calcium supplement that she had been taking for a long time. She decided to have a toxicology test done on the sample of that product that she had been taking for years. And it came back that it was extremely high with the content of lead. And they concluded at the time that her symptoms were basically from lead poisoning. She then went on to mount a campaign and had the FDA ban the import and sales of food supplements to the U.S. As time went on, she basically became an invalid and lived in San Clemente, California. Her health continued to decline, and in 1976, she was diagnosed with leukemia. She became very ill and received a blood transfusion in the hospital and had a terrible reaction to it and suddenly died. Now she's interred with her father at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City, California. In a letter that arrived after her death, the FDA advised her that amendments were being made to the laws governing the importation of nutritional supplements. And this was largely due as the result of her situation. I hope you enjoyed looking back on these memorable characters. They were fun to watch during our childhood, and the toy was the best thing on the market at the time. That man got thrown up into the air millions of times. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.